folks, we're going to get started. Come on in. Great to see everyone tonight on this, must have been a little chilly, crazy night. I want to pass on a couple of quick things. The books that did not come in from Michael Burns are here. You can purchase those, plus a few left over. A lot of those were taken. I think folks were excited. And got a text from Michael a while ago. Loved being here, loved the church. He said, I'm retiring at Triangle. I said, no, we'll get you here before you retire. So fantastic weekend. Amazing teaching, just wonderful. So that'll be in the back tonight afterwards. So you notice we're starting right at 7 o'clock. We're trying something here with our younger families to make sure we're done at 7:40. So I have a countdown clock that's already started on me that I'm going to finish. Now, that doesn't mean you got to leave at 7:40. It just means I'm going to stop. Ken Bruns doesn't believe me. I saw the look on his face. Probably good reason, but a lot I would love to get to tonight. I'm going to see what I can do, and we'll go from there. But we want to help these families out that if we end at 7:40, they can go grab their kids, maybe be home by 8 or a little after, get their kids down. Might make it a little bit easier, so we're going to try some things here, see what we can do. So what I need you to do then is buckle up and be ready to go. And when I say go, we're going to really, really go tonight. All right, so the classes that we're going to do for the spring or winter spring are going to be what we call foundational classes. Why do we believe what we believe? And I'll use two illustrations of this. Number one, y'all know that we've built the building in Nairobi, Kenya. Got to talk to Scott McQuaid the other day, and we were just reminiscing and laughing that when it just so happened that he was there when they were looking at building this building. They had their plans, and he went, no, time out. Not what you should do. You need to dig deeper, go further down, build a bigger foundation so that in the future, you can go higher. And if I could describe these classes in any way, that's the way I would describe them. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, they are heady. They're a little woo. And if I've got 40 minutes, you're going to have to go do some study on your own. But I will guarantee you this from personal experience, which I'm about to share. If you will build a deep, deep foundation for your faith, and I wanted to start tonight, but I don't have time to just go around and go, tell me why you believe in God. I think a lot of us would fail miserably. We'd turn to the Bible, first of all, is what we will, because the Bible said, well, forget the Bible. If you don't believe in God, you don't believe in the Bible, right? I mean, it's His Word. So we have to be able to reason and think way beyond that. So from a personal experience, one of my favorite things when I got my degree was that I went into a Christian evidences classes with Dr. Ralph Gilmore. And first day of class, so what do teachers typically do on the first day of class? They come in, they find out who everybody is, they take roll, here's your syllabus, here's your this, here's your that. He did none of that. He walked in and he started walking around the room. Sam Blackwell, why do you believe in God? And then as you begin to speak, he started responding to that. I'll just go ahead and tell you what happened. Short version. That was a Wednesday, okay, in class. Every one of us walking out of that class said, I'm not even going to church tonight. I give up. I don't even know that I believe in God after listening to him for, what was it, a Wednesday class. That was 50 minutes. Brilliant guy. He just retired. But it gave us an appetite to say, okay, and he ended the class by saying, okay, Now you stick with me for the rest of this semester, and you're going to walk out of here with intelligent arguments and thinking in why you believe what you believe. And so these first couple of weeks, we're going to look at why we believe in God, and we're going to look at why we believe in the Bible. And a lot of that is going to be outside of the Bible. Tonight, we're only going to look at 2 scriptures if I get to those. So tonight, okay, I did it in 5 minutes. So I'm having to work with myself here to make this work. We're going to do 2 things tonight. We're going to look at 2 very long-standing arguments for the existence of God. There's no such thing as proof for the existence of God, right? We have what we call faith. But what we can do is find things that support our faith, that increase our faith, that help us to go, that makes sense. And there are arguments that have been used for literally a couple thousand years. There were people before Jesus was born that were arguing and thinking and reasoning about the existence of God. Some of these have been, changed. And I will tell you that we're going to look at 2 tonight. And there's every kind of variation along the way. The first one has a big name. It's called the ontological argument for the existence of God. I'm going to spend like 5, 6, 7 minutes on this one. And the reason for that is this is the one that is the most heady. It's the one that if you really want to dig into this, you're going to do some reading, some studying, and there must be 100 variations of this argument that have been written over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Okay? And then we're going to get to one of my personal favorites after that. All right, so the Greek word, and then later Latin, ontou, which just means existence. It's all the word. So we talk about the ontological argument for the existence of God. It is an argument that just simply says this, and I think we have it up on the screen. Because I can conceive there is a God, he must exist. Now we're going to delve into that a little bit deeper, but the basic argument is this. Because I can conceive that there is a God. Now let me extend on that a little bit. I can conceive that there is a perfect, intimate, benevolent, omniscient, omnibenevolent, omnipotent God. He must exist. Why? Because existence is a part, or non-existence would be a negative towards that. And therefore, since I can conceive it in my mind, another way to state it would be, how can a finite being like me and you think up on our own an infinite God? Now, you're going to have to mull on this one a little bit. Like I said, this one is quite heady. And so the ultimate question is, where did the idea of God come from? Here's an interesting fact. Every nation or tribe on earth has worshiped something. Now, not the same as us, very different in a lot of ways, but it tells you something. Why is it that some little tribe that sits out in the middle of somewhere that has never been a part of civilization has their own deity of some kind, something that they worship? And you have to ask yourself, where in the world did that come from? That is what this argument is about. Why do we even conceive that there is a God if, and what are the choices? Well, there's basically 2. God put it there. So here's where I believe the Bible affirms that. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 11. What does that verse say? God has set eternity in the hearts of men. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11. God has set eternity in the hearts of men, meaning that our argument is there is something in everyone. They know it's there. They don't know what it is. We go different places with it. We don't understand it, but it's there. And you can see it in every tribe, society that has walked the face of the earth. Something they've come up with to worship. So the ontological argument asks the question, why is that? Well, either God put it there, or the second alternative is we thought it up on our own. But then again, back to the question I've already asked. Can a finite being conceive of a perfect, infinite being on his own? That's the question. That's the argument. That's what the ontological argument is all about. Now, we can say things like, well, it was just man's imagination. Okay, but think about what imagination is. Isn't imagination you simply rearranging things you already know? Think through that one a little bit. We have all these things we imagine, but are any of them unique to my brain? Or am I just rearranging things that I've already been exposed to? Did I think it up on my own? All right, so very quickly, let's talk about reality, because that has a lot to do with this argument. So there are four things under this argument about reality. Number one, reality is an illusion. We don't actually exist. Don't laugh. There is a religion in America that believes that. Anybody know what that is? Somebody said it. Say it louder. Scientology. Scientology is all about freeing you from the illusion, and so you're called a freed person once you reach the top level. And so one alternative is, I don't actually exist. There are also some Eastern religion, and my only response to that is, well, then if reality really doesn't exist, why do we care anyway? Because it doesn't matter. All right, the second option is reality is self-created. You created yourself. I know these sound crazy, but guys, there are only about 4 options in this equation, and you got to pick one. So the second one is, you have created yourself. You existed prior to your own creation, and you created yourself. The third one is reality is self-existed. It is eternal. That means, and there is a thinking out there, that you have existed forever. And my response to that would be, and you have a problem believing in an eternal God? You're defining yourself that I have always existed. And yet, what has science come up with? We'll talk about this when we get to the cosmological argument. Science believes that there is a beginning to the earth, right? Big Bang. So even science rejects that and says, no, you haven't always existed. So what's the fourth one? Well, of course, the fourth one is reality is that we have an eternal creator. Okay, that is sort of the idea of this real difficult, heady, ontological, did I define onto his existence? This existence that we try to figure out, where does it come from? And the argument is it comes from God because we couldn't think of it on our own. All right? What happened to my clock? There it is. All right. So now we're going to get to the one I really love. I think this is one of the most powerful arguments for the existence of God. It's called the moral argument for the existence of God. So quick question. What is in this room that we could agree is absolutely morally wrong? How many of you would agree that murdering a 1-year-old, is that wrong? You put your hand up, okay? How about raping a child? Raise your hand. Okay. So the basis of this argument is founded in that there are certain things that we can all agree on. Get your Bibles real quick if you want to see it in the Bible and turn to Romans chapter 2. Let's read this. There's a real interesting thing that Paul alludes to. He doesn't go into it in great depth. Romans chapter 2, starting in verse 12. He's talking about the law that God has given, and he says, all who sin apart from the law will also perish apart from the law, and all who sin under the law will be judged by the law. For it is not those who hear the law who are righteous in God's sight, but is those who obey the law that will be declared righteous. Catch this next part. Indeed, when Gentiles who do not have the law do by nature things required by the law. Did you catch that phrase? They are a law for themselves, even though they do not have the law, since they show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their consciences also bear witness in their thoughts, now accusing, even defending them. Do you follow Paul's argument? He goes, hey, you guys that have the law, of course. But how is it that these Gentiles who do not have the law somehow have figured out and automatically done things that are in the law? What does he call it? By nature. God has put something in us that says there's right and wrong. Okay, I understand that's an argument from the Bible. We can't do that when we're talking about believing in God. We have to stay away from the Bible. I just want you to see that it is that me? No, that's not me. I want you to see that it is supported in the Bible. So notice one of the words that he uses. Conscience. You ever thought about that? What is a conscience? And where in the world did it come from? Anybody in here ever had a bout with your conscience? Where'd that come from? Even kids. They do things, and then you can see the look on their face and it's not all a learned behavior. Some of it is, but where in the world did a conscience come from? All right, so let's back up for a second and think about this. So there are these moral laws. Every society, we'll get that to that in a minute. Where in the world did any kind of concept of morality, right and wrong, come from? Now, I don't know about you, but you answer this question for yourself. Am I intrinsically inclined to create more and more and more rules for myself? Or am I intrinsically, in my human nature, inclined to free myself? You follow that question? In other words, am I looking to make up more and more and more and more and more rules? Or am I looking to find my way around rules and do what I want to do? What is your nature? Now, I'll tell you what my nature is. My nature is, I want those rules. I want to do what I want to do. And so what follows from that is this. We tend to find ways to liberate ourselves, not to find more rules for ourselves. So does it follow then in this argument that mankind on his own would make up rules to restrict himself? It's not our nature, is it? We sit here right now and we go, no. I spent way too much time in the principal's office in elementary school based on that very fact right there. I want to do what I want to do, and I'm not going to follow the rules. And yet, that would be the only place you could go to if you don't believe that those morals were put there. Now, here's another one of those crazy facts. Every society known to man has some form, different, but some form of right and wrong. Where in the world did that come from? We just on our own decided we're going to decide right and wrong. That's not our nature. We know that. It came because God put it there. So I have a question. I don't know if it's going to be up there. Please just bear with me on the insensitivity of this question, okay? Why are child molesters treated so severely in prison? You understand? You know the story of that. If you don't, go online and look up a little bit. If you're a child molester and you get sent to prison, it's about to get really ugly for you. A lot of you are nodding your heads. You kind of know the stories. And so all I would ask you to do for a second is think through that. What would cause some of the hardest, could be murderers, could be whatever, but if you go in as a child molester, you are going to be, let's just say, mistreated and leave it at that. Okay? And if you can go look up statistics, that's a fact. Why is that? What is it in people that themselves have broken all kinds of moral laws that are going to, because there's something in them that says what? That's just wrong. I know I've done wrong, but that? Where do you think that comes from? This is what the moral argument for the existence of God is about. It's about morality. It's about right and wrong. And then there's a lot of things that branch out of that. The intrinsic value of life. If there is a morality, then we have to respect life. And that flows out of this argument. It's a part of this argument that God has created us with intrinsic value. Is it okay to kill a baby? Now, I'm not talking about abortion. I'm not talking about, let's just skip that, go beyond that. Is that okay? Most of the world would say no. Not all, but most. Where does that intrinsic value to life come from? So here's what ends up happening in this argument. Atheism can provide no reason whatsoever for things like morality, and I'm going to use a bunch of words here: hope, meaning, beauty, goodness. And I'll borrow one from my buddy Doug Jacoby. He added one that I hadn't really thought of before: personality. If I am just a glob moving through the universe, okay, how do I account for things that if there is no right and wrong, there is no morality, then where in the world are things like hope and meaning and beauty? How do we extract beauty from the world if there's not ugly and beautiful, right and wrong? Do you follow that argument? And Doug, actually, if you want to read his take on this, and like I said before, in all of these arguments, there are 100 little different branches that you can add to this. But I was intrigued by what he added to a long-standing argument about the moral existence, is he adds personality. What is personality based upon, by the way? our reactions to right, to wrong, to are you friendly or not friendly? Are you this? Are you that? There is something that God has put in us that makes us act differently. And we call that personality. We're not just a bunch of cells going through the universe. And we think of great words like beauty. A great question there would be, how did impersonal matter take on a personality? Let that one mull through your brain for a second. So if we follow the theory of evolution, if we follow that we are just here and we're a blob and we've come a ways, at some point, a tree has to go from, I have no personality, no feeling, to I now have feeling. Ooh, that's a leap, isn't it? That ought to encourage you right there. That ought to go, man, I am so glad God created me in His image, and I feel and I love and I think and I do like God does. I'm not just this object. And boy, what proof are you going to give if you don't believe in morality of how we ever got to a place where we became feeling and thinking and moral people? It's just a leap you got no answer for. That encourages me when I go, yeah, I can see how God made us, and He made us with this sense of morality. All right, so I want you to keep thinking about that last question there, and then I'm going to close out. Man, I'm doing good. I got 10 more minutes. Probably take me 10 minutes, though. How did impersonal matter become personal if God didn't put it there? That's at the base of the moral argument. Every society has known morality in some form. Where'd that come from? All right, so I want to share, this is a little bit personal, but I'm going to share two different things here that hopefully will encourage your faith as we kind of finish this out. So, and I think it was back, and I don't know the date. I'm going to have to go back. I forgot to write that down, but it was around 2000, I think. There was a group of world-renowned atheists that got together in California for a meeting. I think I wrote down, no, I didn't write down the name of it, but that's where it was. But anyway, there's a quote given by a guy that wrote an article about it. And he's quoting Edward Slingerland of the University of British Columbia. He is the founder of the Center for the Study of Human Evolution, Cognition, and Culture. And they met in whatever year it was, and their basic thing was, we're going to get rid of religion. They came back the next year, and they said, no, that might not work. We need to study this further. And here is a quote from this guy, okay? At that conference, and it's going to introduce what I'm going to share. Religion is not going away. He's talking to a room full of atheists who are renowned for their knowledge and whatever. He said, religion is not going away. Catch this phrase. Even those of us who fancy ourselves as rationalists and scientists rely on moral values, a set of distinctly unscientific beliefs. That is an amazing admission. Hey guys, we're here, but here's the deal. Religion's not going away because you and I don't have an explanation for morality. Pretty shocking. All right, so You can Google these if you want to. So I'm going to give you the names of two men. Both of these men debated Thomas B. Warren. I've heard Thomas B. Warren speak many times. He was professor of philosophy and religion at Harding University, Harding Graduate School. And he has debated two of the most famous atheists ever known, particularly this first one. And his name is Antony Flew, F-L-E-W. He's now dead. He died about 10 years ago. And so I'll just read a little bit about his credentials so that you understand who this is. During the last half of the 20th century, Dr. Antony Flew, professor of philosophy at the University of Reading, England, was considered the world's most well-known atheistic philosopher. From 1955 till 2000, he lectured and wrote extensively on matters pertaining to atheism. Some of his works include, but in no way are limited to, God and Philosophy, Evolutionary Ethics, Darwinian Evolution, The Presumption of Atheism, and Atheistic Humanism. In whatever it was, that one is in late 70s, he debated Dr. Thomas B. Warren. And then I'll come to a quote from that in just a minute. Let me go ahead and give you the second guy. The second guy's name is Warren Mattson, also a very noted. Dr. Mattson was the professor of philosophy at the University of California, Berkeley. And he debated Dr. Warren in 1978 in Tampa, Florida. And I was there. I listened to this debate. I was a high school junior. I was interested in debate, which I did collegiately as I went on. And I was also interested in God and interested in figuring out why I believe in God. So the interesting thing is in both of these debates, they had similar ground rules. And in those ground rules, you could ask the opponent 10 questions. So I'm going to read one of the questions that Dr. Warren asked both of these world-renowned atheistic scholars, one perhaps the greatest of our time. And here was the question. Let me find it. True or false? In murdering 6 million Jewish men, women, and children, the Nazis were guilty of real moral wrong. How do you think the two top atheistic philosophers of the day answered that question? Both answered in the affirmative. Now think of what they just admitted to. It goes on. Wallace Mattson went even further in his admission. He said in the affirmative, yes, that if you had been a soldier during World War II, and if you had been captured, and you had been given the choice of either joining the efforts of the Nazis or being murdered, his conclusion was, as an atheist, that you have the moral obligation to die rather than to join the Nazis. That is the moral argument for the existence of God. Even atheists have no way to explain. Now, there is quite a footnote to this story if I ran it off, which I think I did somewhere. It's in my notebook. I'll tell it. So the first guy, the guy that wrote every one of those books that I mentioned, Anthony Flew, and is noted as the most renowned atheist probably in the last 75 years. Anybody know his story? Anybody know this story? In 2004, so that would have been just a few years after the debate, he began to back up a little bit on his thinking about God. And he began to, at least partially in 2004, embrace that maybe. And then in 2009, he shocked the atheistic world. And he wrote a book along with another guy when he was 89 years old, saying, God does exist. And then died shortly thereafter. You know why? Because he couldn't answer this question. He couldn't figure out how to explain to the world, outside of a larger being, a God with morality, that morality entered the world. He couldn't do it. Now, I don't know if he ever had a relationship with God and all that, but he wrote a book. Look it up. Anthony, don't put the H in there, Anthony Flew. A shocking story, but a story that should encourage us, because morality exists, guys. It's there, and God put it there. And that is one of our strongest arguments for why we believe in God. You know it's there. It's in you. You know it's there. Let that be part of the foundation where you build your faith and you go, you know what? I know I can read my Bible and it encourages my faith, but there are things in this world I can't explain without God, and morality is one of them. And if some of the greatest atheists that have walked the face of the earth can't do it either, that gives me a lot of support for my faith. Now, as I started out saying, I don't think anything we're going to say in this thing is you're going to walk out of here and go, that's it. I know it as a proven thing. Boom. I want to go buy TV time because I'm going to prove to the world. But what it is going to do is it's going to support your faith. And I got to tell you, we're living in a world, and I pray for our young people right now because we're seeing that I don't think and this is one of the reasons we decided to do this class. I talked to Michael Burns about it when he was here. I don't think we as the church and we as evangelists and we as teachers and elders have done a really good job. Maybe, I'll say this, I feel very, very fortunate that my parents and Lynn's parents and my grandparents and my schooling has given me a very, very firm, deep foundation. I'm not sure we're doing that right now. And I think we got a lot of young people that have a foundation that is about that deep. And when the world hits them, they don't know why they believe in God. Other than, the Bible tells me to. It's not a very good argument. We need deeper. And that's what we're going to try to do in these classes. All right? 38 seconds left. Come on, man, I did it. All right. Guys, stay in fellowship all you want. Stay as long as you want. Love you. We'll see you soon.